Hello, everybody, and welcome to our kickoff bootcamp for the first time for both the certificate in Python for Finance program as well as the artificial quant, which is brand new. And this is something actually that I came up with for our 20th company anniversary. You see it here on the first slide. Yeah, my name is Eve. I'm a founder and CEO of the Python Quants, and I'm pretty excited actually that we were able to make it through the first 2 decades. And yeah, some of you might know, others maybe not. Even before I started the company 20 years ago, I made my first steps with Python, and it was already for finance. Back in the days, almost nobody was using Python for finance, only a few here and there, but I saw the potential with my background in finance that this is something that is so close to finance, the syntax and everything. And this was well before um, yeah, NumPy in its form of today, or Pandas. Pandas wasn't around, and so many other packages that we use in finance. But still, the core language, yeah, in and of itself is worth studying. But with all the ecosystem around it, that's pretty fantastic. Some of you, yeah, might want to use it also maybe for the first time, or maybe you want to improve your Python skills, your AI skills, your NLP skills, and apply them then to finance, want to transform finance into something new, right? From a primarily theoretical discipline with normative theories to something that is much closer to reality and yeah, to the way markets move, and they move fast and they are non-linear, they change over time, they are not stable, right? Once you have figured out something in finance, this might not be true anymore 5 years later. For physicists, this usually is not the case, right? If you have figured out that gravity works in a certain way, like Albert Einstein did in starting in 1905, right? That usually things stay stable at least for a couple of decades, right? The world doesn't change that much, but finance is something ever changing. Therefore, the need to level up the skills. And I think you have come to the right place when it gets to Python and AI for finance. So here behind the yeah, the red short text, right? When you click on it, there is a link behind it, and I just provide it here and quickly show it. That's an article here for our 20th anniversary, 20 years of excellence in finance innovation. If you're interested in, you can read through it. It is primarily about our programs we have done in the past, so many other things, right? But this is what we focus on these days to, yeah, bring the necessary skills out in yeah, the global financial landscape, starting with younger students. Sometimes we have even young students from high school age, right, to professors that then teach it in turn to the students and to the professionals that are working on a daily basis in the financial markets, right? I'm pretty happy that, for example, my books are used these days, for example, at any universities as standard reference text for Python for finance. And of course, even more so these days, AI in finance, right? So this just as a little bit of a starting point for the kickoff bootcamp, which is also a first, as I was mentioning. Um, we have now 3 different sessions. So we used to do just one, and the one that we are going through today is more or less like what we have done in the past. You can think of it like a bit of a high level, a bit more theoretical overview, right? You will see also a couple of yeah, code lines executed, but this is what we want to focus on in the second and third sessions, where I thought, well, to get maybe even more momentum when we get started now with a new cohort in the programs, and for the first time with the artificial quant program, I thought it might be good to increase the momentum and get up to speed even faster by adding 2 practical sessions to the more theoretical starting session. But I think this is still of value to have this theoretical overview so that you have more like an orientation, like a map, that you know what is on the landscape, and later on have an easier time to navigate the wealth of resources that we have compiled over the years in the CPF and now the TAQ as well. So here first, a few words about the programs, then just as reference, something about myself and Python in finance and why it has become so prominent. I said I've lived through all the cycles here over 20 years, more than 20 years actually. Then I want to highlight two classes that are relevant for both programs, and showing a little bit of an overview of the Quant platform. Also going briefly through the study plans. You should have received links to the study plans multiple times by this point, right? And then something about the guiding principles, a little bit about quizzes, exercises, user forum, Discord server, and the final project. That's the program, and let me dive into it in the agenda. So overall, just to put this up front, the CPF contains everything that is currently called the TAQ, or the other way around. The artificial quant is a subset of the CPF, and I came up with it primarily due to the reason that many people say, well, you provide so many resources even for a 1-year study program. This is quite a lot. I'm a professional, I'm working full-time, I might have a few hobbies and family, right? And therefore the TAQ is a bit more focused in terms of the topics, right? I show you exactly what, but the CPF, which currently encompasses all our resources, can be studied, and this is already pretty ambitious, over 16 weeks. You have available, you don't have to, but you have available 350 plus hours of instruction, 2,700 pages of documentation. That's quite a bit, right? And 550 Jupyter notebooks, probably it is already 600 or 650, right? And tens of thousands of lines of code that you can readily use, right? Even if you want to get the certificate, you don't need to go through all the resources, right? You have a lot of opportunity to specialize in one or the other areas, right? And the same holds true for the artificial quant, where the focus lies on the AI parts of what we study. So that's the differentiating factor. And here you see now the complete overview, right? The all these blocks here represent classes in the CPF, and the lighter blue ones here, like the PFF Bootcamp or NLP here, or RL for Finance, or the lighter blue ones, they are part of the TAQ, and the darker blue ones, they come on top in the form of the CPF. You see, these are the 3 primary specializations in the form of asset management, algorithmic trading, and computational finance, right? So that's basically all there is. I say basically all there is. There is quite a bit more on the Quant platform, but this one single chart doesn't allow me to provide this every single piece of resource that we have on the Quant platform. It has been growing over the years, and it's still growing relatively fast, I would say. Speaking of growing fast, for example, this class here, the Data Science Basics class, is a class that I've started in the previous cohort, and where we will have additional live sessions in the current cohort, right? So that's, for example, something I would consider brand new. Other stuff is also kind of new. We recently had a algo trading bootcamp, which you find on the platform. I think this is available to everybody as well, right? We before that we had another class about reinforcement learning for finance based on my just published book, and we also had the NLP class here, where we go through the basics with Python, through packages like NLTK, to the basics of attention, self-attention mechanisms, and transformers, right? Down to, I don't know how many different applications are addressed in that class. So this was something, I must confess, that in the past hasn't been at the forefront of the CPF, but recently, given the so much increased popularity of the LLMs out there, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you name it, I think there was a time to level up our game in this regard as well. We always covered natural language processing, but not in a detail that is comparable to what we now have available here. Once again, you are not obliged, so to say, to go through every single topic here, in particular in the CPF. You have the opportunity to specialize in Python for asset management, or in algorithmic trading, or computational finance. Many people in the past, due to the fact that you can study more or less indefinitely with us, have done one core topic first, then later on studied another core topic, or people were even following new classes that we came up with, right? So that's basically all at your disposal. You can decide how much you want to study per week, how fast you want to study, what you want to focus on. But in the end, in particular for the CPF, you must have one specialization in which you will prepare the final project, which is the major and the most important milestone. That's actually a condition to obtain the certificate, right? So that's the overview. If you have questions, you can post them, for example, in the user forum, or here even on the Discord server, right? When you navigate on the Quant platform to the single classes, you find a ton of information about the content, not of the class itself, but also for every video. So these days we have summaries, comprehensive summaries for every single video on the Quant platform, AI generated. So we are not only teaching AI for finance and NLP, we also leverage the capabilities of LLMs here to improve your experience, your learning experience on the Quant platform, right? Here, a little bit of background about, well, not background, about or feedback about the CPF in the past. There is not yet any feedback with regard to the TAQ, because we start out with this more compact, more concise offering as of today, the official start date, right? But just for you as a little bit of a reference, and maybe also appetizer. With regard to myself, you might have seen them. Maybe you have read one or the other book. That's a typical channel via which people come to us when they say, well, I've read, I don't know, Python for finance or Python for algorithmic trading, and I want to dig a little bit deeper. And then they come to us for the CPF. Now maybe for the TAQ when they read about artificial intelligence in finance. So these are the 6 books, or regional books, I wanted to say, but these have been the first 6 on the topic. First came Python. Officially, basically derivatives analytics with Python was the first I've written, but Python for finance was published first. Then came derivatives analytics with Python. So these two have been more or less written, not in parallel, that's not what I want to say, but they have been published more or less in parallel, right? And then I moved on here with the listed volatility, Python for algorithmic trading, AI in finance, and financial theory, which is the introductory book. This is the last one chronologically here, but it's the introductory book. And the last one chronologically, now, since it has came out, is reinforcement learning for finance, a Python-based introduction, and this is focused from the first to the last page, so to say, on reinforcement learning for finance. In the book AI in Finance, you find also a few examples with regard to deep Q learning as applied to algorithmic trading and market prediction, but this here has a number of applications beyond what is covered in the book AI in Finance. And for example, this is here at the core of the CPF, as well as the TAQ. And when I mention this so often, you might have figured out in the meantime that there is for sure a natural progression of those who have now signed up and enrolled into the TAQ to later on say, well, now the time has come maybe to go deeper in algo trading, or maybe go deeper in asset management, and cover all the other topics that we have to offer in the program, right? So here, just for you to read, I'm not going through this, that's for you as a reference. So Python and finance, I told you my story. is 20 years of Python in finance, for finance. In the beginning, it was, I would say, research and the hobby at best, because I spent a lot of time, but wasn't able. In the beginning, it wasn't even my goal to make any money out of it. I just saw it as a very intriguing combination. And from the beginning, I was convinced myself, and I never yeah, was disappointed in my decision, so to say, and regretted it. But today, I think there is no arguing. And you can imagine that over the years, in particular in the beginning, I was arguing and arguing, why should we use Python? Why is Python better than X or Z? Why Python is too slow? Python is here, Python is there. But these days, we have so many reasons why Python is used in the industry for data analysis and modeling, right? Data everywhere, not only in finance and other industries and domains as well. And algorithmic trading, right? This is more or less where it really got a strong foothold early on, by yeah, driven by the hedge funds that applied Python earlier, because you can imagine, for a large bank, investment bank with hundreds of thousands of people and a huge technology stacks in place, that is a little bit more difficult than for a smaller boutique-like company to deploy new technologies, right? Financial engineering, it was a long time seen as a basically good prototype language like MATLAB, but for production, for pricing, for example, risk management, C++ was the dominant language. But Python had an advantage because Python can interface easily with C and C++ code. So this was a major advantage, right? Machine learning and AI is everywhere these days, and Python is a first-class citizen. So that's wonderful. Versatility and efficiency. From my point of view, this was still, thinking back, the major benefit that I saw in the beginning, the beauty of the syntax, versatility and efficiency, not necessarily in the form of the speed of the computation, but rather in the speed of development and application, right? That's still a strength. Now it's an industry standard, right? Here, key reasons for Python. It's not that people say, well, no, we are on our way to the industry standard. No. We have reached industry standard level here, right? Community and resources, huge, large, huge community, so many packages in the ecosystem. That's simply wonderful, right? And there are so many quant roles, and many of these roles are not even necessarily focused on a single specialization, as we call it in the CPF, right? Of course, you see here algorithmic traders, financial engineers, and portfolio manager. This would be in our world the asset management part, the computational finance part, the algorithmic trading part. But in risk, for example, data scientists in finance, quantitative analysts in general. There are so many different roles which require the application of advanced Python skills and methods, as well as machine learning and AI. It's basically innumerable these days, right? So there are so many good reasons from a industry point of view to use Python in finance, but also from individual point of view to study Python for finance, because it will for sure propel your career and might help you land a job that otherwise wouldn't be open to you, right? So to know a bit of Excel and a bit of VBA, in other words, is not enough anymore these days, right? And there are also roles here like fixed income analysts or quant developers, generally speaking, right? Quant analysts, quant developers. This has become more or less like a general profile, right? And all of these people, they use heavily Python these days. Back in the days, 10 plus years back, usually there has been a plethora of different technology platforms where people try to combine and get by with, let's say, R for statistics and MATLAB for computation and whatever. And now Python has more or less emerged as a replacement for all of these, right? And also in the IT, when you say system administration, our program, Linux basics and all these skills that come around it, right? They are also these days a core part of the curriculum, right? So many good reasons from an industry point of view, but also if you want to land a job in one of these areas, what we teach for sure will help you getting your job of your dreams. Or maybe you say, for example, we have many people in the past who have done so. They say, well, I want to build my own sidekick, for example, in the form of an algorithmic trading business, or I want to do this on a more professional basis, or I'm doing it already on a professional basis with my own company or whatever, and now I want to level up. For example, I want to become a systematic trader out of my discretionary world, right? And there's so many different motives, objectives, and I think we cater to basically all of them as long as it has something to do with Python and or AI for finance. So not everybody yeah, might be already convinced to join the program, who's following along, and most of you have already joined. I would say a wonderful decision, but we have also a lot of free resources, right? You can go to our YouTube channel where you find dozens of hours of free content that you can follow along, like the Python for Finance online bootcamp that we did recently, or you can register here for a trial where you get access to admittedly smaller selection of modules from different classes. So that's of course open to everybody who is following along, those who are already signed up to one of our programs, and again, these free resources are open to everybody if you want to get additional insights or feeling for what it means, what it entails to study with us. So coming now to one of the core classes, which is called Finance with Python. So the class is called Finance with Python. The book is called Financial Theory with Python. And not for every class, we have kind of like the triple pillar structure, meaning on the left hand side the book, then the recordings plus the notebooks and the executable forms that you can then execute on the Quant platform. I mean, I always find it nice that people every once in a while assume that for every class I have also written a book. So we have more classes than I have written, or I have been able to write books. Just recently somebody wrote me an email and said, Yves, I don't find your book for Python for asset management. I've been thinking about it for quite a while now, but I haven't written it yet. So for 7 of the classes, I can imagine that's the situation, that there is a book accompanying the class, but not for everyone, for every single class, right? And then we have here recordings plus the Jupyter notebooks, and we have executable versions on our Jupyter Lab hosted environment within Docker containers on the Quant platform. But this is something you should keep in mind. Either we have a book for it or not, but you have usually video recordings, links to maybe slide decks or other resources that accompany the sessions and the modules and the Jupyter notebooks and or other code snippets, right? It can also be, let's say, a bash script or a Python script, or whatever the content is in this particular case, right? And you find it then also on the Quant platform. Many of the code examples of Jupyter notebooks can be executed on the Quant platform, but not all of them. So some classes you're supposed to work through on your own machine, or maybe even in a cloud instance, for example. That's simply a given, depending on the topic. But for the introductory classes, let's say Finance with Python or Python for Finance key skills, you shouldn't face any issues in working through all of these via the web browser on the Quant platform. But even for these, if you start early on setting up your own Python environments, etc., locally, there's no need to work on the Quant platform, on the Jupyter Lab, on the Quant platform. You can execute that code. You can download and execute that code also on your local machine. But I want to show you now on the Quant platform how this works. And to this end, let me put on my glasses. This simplifies things quite a bit. And here I'm on the Quant platform, but let me go to the dashboard. I've logged in previously already. You see here latest videos. So here, these are not the latest videos on the Quant platform. This has something to do that in between cohorts, we usually restructure things a little bit. For example, we have come up with a new class. This was in a different part when we did the live sessions for data science basics. So for the previous cohort, there was no separate class about data science basic. Now there is one, and given our reorderings, restructurings, this is now what is shown. But for example, the session of today, once I upload the session to the Quant platform, you will find it here in the first spot. And then when there is another one, this will then move to the second spot, and the new one will be in the first spot. So you see here the latest videos, the latest forum posts, right? And yeah, here the overview over the topic. So that's what we call the dashboard, right? And what I was saying, you find additional information with regard to the content of the single classes on the Quant platform. This holds true for the class themselves, but what I mentioned, and this is also a rather recent addition here, for example, for that video that shows up first, it's not now relevant which video that is, right? But this provides you with a detailed summary of what to expect in that video, or here, or that one, Data Science Basics, or Data Science Basics 1 introduces essential tools and techniques in data science, focusing on coding and data manipulation, and so forth and so forth. So I don't need to read it. You have this nowadays basically for every video, and this runs really smoothly. So once I upload the video, there are automated scripts running in the background, which will transcribe the videos and then basically create the summary. And I come to other functionality later on as well, in terms of full text search. Before we had these wonderful LLM capabilities via APIs, you could search over the text that was written by me in general here on the platform when I was uploading something. But now you can even search not only the summaries that you see here, but basically every single word that was ever spoken during every video recording is searchable, right? And this for me is still like magic, right? So I estimated that there has been, I don't know, 2 or 2.5 million words spoken in all the videos. That's already quite a bit, and every single word is searchable, and you see the context exactly where this word was spoken during which video, and you can simply click on it and you can jump to the exact second where the hit was found in the video, right? So that's just the overview, the starting point. So when you go through the study plan systematically, one of the first things you will encounter is finance with Python. And here you see the basic structure. You have books, right? There are my 7 books, AI in Finance and so forth, reinforcement learning for finance, right? Let's say here we want to get started with finance with Python. And when you click here on the book, it opens. There is a password that's password protected. Everybody should have received the password with the personal welcome email. And yeah, this is, among others, part of the 2,700 pages that I mentioned on the one slide, basically. And you have access to the version of that book where you can go through. And for example, for the first week, if you go according to the plan, you might want to read chapter 1, chapter 2, maybe already chapter 3. So it depends on how fast you want to proceed. There are, and we come to the study plans, there are recommendations of how you can go along, but it's not a necessity. I know there are many people out there. Most of you are, yeah, I would say quite a bit older, like I am. Not everybody, but I'm pretty sure you have, independent of your age, you have your own approach to learn and to cover such material, right? Some of you might want to go through the text first and then go to the code, or some want to go through the code first and see how the mechanics are and then read additional information. So this is all up to you. We don't want to micromanage, we just want to provide guidance and the content, and you can then study according to your experience and to your liking, right? So that's the first part. And in the slide, this was the left-hand side, right? And when I now go to, I can close that. When I go to classes, right, you see here the long list of classes that we have these days, right? That's quite a bit. this looks to me even longer or more comprehensive than the overview slide. And I said in the overview slide, not everything here is listed. When I now go to Finance with Python, you see this is the class now. The class itself, there are 6 videos, Finance with Python 01 to 06. You see for every such module here, once again, when I hover over the video, you see the summary and so forth, right? For every single video, you see here the link to the slide deck that you can click on, and you see links here to the Jupyter Notebook. So let's say in the first week, you get started with Finance with Python, here 01. And when I click on it, here I have it open already. Therefore, it asks me whether it should leave the site or not. This was just because I have already an instance open. I can close that one instance here, right? One is enough, but you see, of course, you can have multiple instances open. And after that, you have the exact Jupyter Notebook, which you can execute here. So you see, in particular for Finance with Python, the notebooks usually are not self-explanatory, right? Without the explanations from the text, this might be a little bit difficult. So here, approach of the book, this is from the very first chapter, right? And independent of, let me simply, I tested this before. Let me restart the kernel. I tested this before, therefore it says 16. But usually when you get started here, 1, 2, 3, right? You go through it and you can execute this line by line, right? So for most of the Jupyter notebooks that you find on the Quant platform, this should be the case, and this should work that way, right? There's another one for the O2 one here, right? I can also go and use, we have a couple of shortcuts. So sometimes when things happen and you don't know why, so here, for example, there is restart kernel and run cells, right? This is Shift Control and N, right? So Shift Control N, and I can restart it and execute it from scratch. So again, a pretty simple notebook, but that's the very idea of Finance with Python, to have the gentle introduction to both Finance and Python. Here you see a couple of visualizations in there, so sometimes a few more, sometimes not that many, right? So that's it. You see, this Jupyter notebook is already quite a bit larger than the other one. So here we end at 145. So the introductory one was just 15, so 10 times as many cells for the second Jupyter notebook here, right? So, but this is now the triple pillar structure that I mentioned before. You have the book, right, with all the text and the code that I've executed. When I go further down, you see here, this is the code from the first very short chapter and notebook here, right? So, and there are all the explanations that are required to understand that code. So that's the text where you also find the code. Then you have here the class overview summaries for the video. You have the links to the notebooks, links to the slide deck here that you can open. Like the slide deck I'm using now, right? Usually hosted all on certificate.tpq.io. And last but not least, if you want to execute it here on the Quant platform, you can execute it here, right? So at this point, early on, I want to emphasize that you might see here that here it doesn't save, right? Usually Jupyter Notebook saves every once in a while. So when I would, for example, change the code here to something simple, so V, right, and then V times 2, and now I go here to File and Save. You see that save is black or grayed out. It's not blacked out, it's grayed out. Save all, also grayed out. This means that you cannot save this Jupyter notebook, meaning that we have decided in the past that we provide you with original versions of all Jupyter notebooks, and you have always available the original versions that we provide on the Quant platform. This has the major advantage that you have always the exact code that we expect you to have, and you can be sure as well. But this has the disadvantage that when you do some change here, right, like here ×2, and I write a comment, this is a change that I did myself, right? This cannot be saved in this very notebook because this is read only, it is write protected. But I can go, and you might have seen it here, there is save notebook as. This of course works, and I would personally delete here the path to finance with Python here, everything that is up front, right? And save it now maybe with the same name, or I say finance with Python, my version, for example. And when I save it now, you don't see it here yet, but I can go to my home folder, and you see now the version of the notebook that I have saved, right? Here's the name. Why it hasn't changed the name, I don't know. Finance with Python book, it says. I thought I would have changed the name. Then maybe I missed something. This is now a version. You see now the cross here instead of the circle, right? Here the cross indicates that this version is saved, right? So that version is not saved. No need to save it because I haven't done any changes here. But with the changes I've made here, I have now my personal version that I have saved in the Jupyter lab environment here on Docker. And for everybody who is working here, your files are getting are getting saved. And why am I emphasizing this? Yeah, every once in a while, when you log in again and you haven't been logged in for once a while, we will destroy your Docker container, but just the runtime environment, but not the files that you have saved. So if you work here and save it, this should be persisted. But overall, I would recommend that you here use the server just for exploration, testing, illustration, doing maybe some exercises, but not, for example, to do work for your company or whatever, due to privacy reasons, but also due to backup reasons, etc. You can do it everything, but we wouldn't, in other words, wouldn't guarantee that everything that you do here will persist forever, right? Which might be a necessary condition if you want to do some work for your company, but you can improve your skills, you can work here, you can save stuff, etc. But if you want to do proper work, please do it on your corporate engines, on your own machines. That's then the better way. Not saying that we are not careful with that, but this is really a teaching, learning, and exploration environment, and not a full production environment, to put it that way. But you have all the capabilities that you might be looking for. So that's something that I've saved, and when I close this now, I can here go, and this one is something that I can delete as well, right? All the others I cannot delete. I cannot go here to one of the classes. See, here's the long list of the classes, and go here and delete a complete folder or single files. This does not work, but in my personal environment, I can do that. That's not a problem, right? So let me close the book here. So that's finance with Python, which everybody should get started with from the very beginning. Then we have AI in finance, which is part of both CPF and TAQ. We have here 2 books for that part. We have AI in finance, we have reinforcement learning for finance. We have 24 modules about AI in finance. So, you know, the formally scheduled program is 12 weeks, so 24 module sessions in AI in finance. You basically could go through the 24 like once of each class per week. You don't have to. Again, you here have a little bit of flexibility. And we now have a total of close to 30 module sessions in reinforcement learning for finance. We in both cases, we had first a more theoretical class, with fundamental concepts implemented from scratch. And then came the classes based on the book, which have been more formalized. But you see, as before, book plus recorded session plus link to maybe slide decks plus plus the Jupyter Notebook, plus the opportunity to execute everything on the Quant platform, or you download it and execute it on your own machine. So that's all possible. And again, that's to yeah, that's the triple pillar structure that we have. And yes, usually question whether all of this is recorded, and for sure it is. All our sessions are recorded and uploaded to the Quant platform shortly afterward. Depending on the conversion process, this might take maybe 30 minutes, sometimes maybe an hour, I don't know. This is pretty fast these days on our Mac machines here on my Mac Studio. The conversion is pretty fast. Yeah, the Quant platform we have seen already in action, but you haven't seen it all. There is a bit more. So dashboard is something that I showed you. Then we had here the classes, plus we have additional stuff here: practice, user forum, chat, and Jupyter Lab. Here the summary I've shown you, execution, the user forum, the books, right? So the core of it all has been demonstrated already, but I have here a couple of other examples that I just mentioned but haven't demonstrated, right? So here is a screenshot from a search. So for search results for TPQ-OA in your videos, right? You see here exactly in that video, TPQ-OA is mentioned at 01:56. So 1 hour 56 minutes 39 seconds and so forth, right? So you see it here in the second video. And that's when we go there. I need to go to the dashboard. And here, for example, when I type pandas, I'm pretty sure we'll get a bunch of hits for pandas, many more than for TPQ-OA. I would bet a decent amount, you can imagine, right? So there is one hit, one search result for pandas in my personal notes. I can show you that as well. Then we have 146 search results for pandas in the videos, and these usually are the largest number of hits that we have there, right? In video, mathematics basics, these three. Pandas is mentioned here in particular in the beginning, right? And yeah, so you see here the other hits, and you can go down, down, down. And of course, if I search, this is the same like with Google, right? If I search something as generic as pandas, you will get a ton of hits. And here I haven't shown it yet, but you see that down here, or in other words, let me go up there. There have been many hits, for example, that one, right? Fin packages 02, that video. Pandas is mentioned in the beginning, and then we have here the complete list. And once again, the more generic your search is, just pandas, right, the more hits you can expect. Right? That's a typical thing here, but it provides you an overview here of what you're looking for. Well, let's assume you have been following a video 3 weeks ago and you remember, oh, well, there was a certain package, for example, a Quant stats, and then you might want to search for this specific thing. Then you might see where and in which video you might have heard about this particular topic. So there are so many things. It's like with Google, right here with our one, and down here, this is what I want to show you in the classes. This also searches here through the text, right? So this session introduces pandas for data analysis and quizzes and pandas and PFF key skills. And you see pandas is obviously one of the core packages that we use here in the CPF and the TAQ accordingly. you get here the large number of hits. And that's full text search for me on another level. It used to be only on what was written down manually, but now it's also full search over every single word that has been spoken in all the videos. And I told you this is well beyond 2 million words what we have these days. So that's the full text search, right? With yeah, the nice additional capabilities, right? So here you see, I think this is something that we had before. The example here, mathematics basics 33, what I recall, right? All these hits presented, and you can click on it. I haven't done so, and that I have clicked on it. Let me go maybe up there to one of these. When I go here to 39 minutes, and click on it, immediately I hear myself speaking now, pandas, immediately it jumps to 39 minutes, 56 seconds where pandas is mentioned, right? So I think that's pretty amazing what the capabilities are. Here, 4416 goes to the video, immediately starts playing. Here, pandas is typed, right? So that's basically wonderful, because this, of course, is something as a content creator that you're not planning for, but with today's technologies that is feasible and implementable in a pretty efficient way. And I think this improves really the efficiency and experience for you. So, for example, here, let me show you another example here. And you might recall in the very beginning, the first hit, right, was something about notes. And for every video, you can create your personal notes here. So this is a personal note about pandas, right? And I could add a timestamp here for myself, right, and add the note. So when you study here the video and say, ah, yeah, this is interesting to me, or want to make note, or here I want to review the concept, or this is where I stopped studying the last time, right? You can to every video add as many notes as you like, and here you can delete them. So my notes here, and I could add another one. This is yet another one about pandas. All right, let me stop that one. So that was that video, and this was the very first hit, right? So just a sample note about pandas, right? So when I reload that page, let me see if it has already processed my entries from before. You see, since pandas yields that many hits, it takes a while until the page is compiled. And you see now that I've made my 2 notes with pandas, right? Here, this is a personal note about pandas, and this is yet another note about pandas, right? So this is already visible here in the search results from the personal notes. So easy for you to also find in your personal notes, your markers, your hints, your notes for following up on a certain topic. So you have here all the flexibility, and you can do your search here full text. And this means, and I repeat myself, I know, but this means indeed full text over it all. And then we have also a fine-tuned, we would say, chatbot. You can try it out. Don't want to spend now more time on the illustration. That's easy for you, because I'm pretty sure there's nobody following along today who hasn't used ChatGPT or one of the other versions of the LLMs, right? But you might say, well, why should I use the PFF and CPF chatbot if there is ChatGPT? Yeah, we are not saying that you should go and dismiss now ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or Grok, or you name it. There's so many out there. I myself use a bunch of these, right? But here, the one major advantage is that the version here is fine-tuned on our proprietary content. So you can, with that chatbot, also go more or less over the content of the CPF in full, as you have seen before. So here the question was, which modules focus on the usage of pandas for financial data science, right? And then you get the answer specifically for the CPF program. So that's the reason why I showed you this example. This is something that you won't find via ChatGPT or any of the others, because they don't have access to our resources, right? And here you see now, like the typical chat structure, you ask a question and you get an answer here. And it shows, for example, O2 Python pandas, management of time series data with the data frame class and pandas, with the explanations, etc. So major difference here is that it is fine-tuned and additionally trained on the content of the CPF. Everything, like all the videos, as I mentioned before. Of course, and I'm not selling this here as a additional mega benefit, if you want to ask it typical questions like what I got started with these bots when they came out, right? 2022, towards the end of the year, right? Write me a Python script which calculates the Black-Scholes Merton price for a European call option, or here the simulation code for geometric Brownian motion. This is something that the chatbot can do as well. But again, the major benefit, I would say, indeed, is here that we have it trained on our content so that you can interact also with regard to the content of our program, right? So now to the study plans. Here, the CPF study plan, you see this is really ambitious, and in the beginning, that's the major difference to the TAQ. We have the 3 classes, or 3 specializations, I should say, that all start with finance with Python. I consider these sessions here really as key and fundamental. So they are just 6 sessions of, I don't know, 1.5 hours each, right? But they are very fundamental. So you should spend time on it. Here, I even in this week's orientation email, I was writing that in the beginning you should prioritize and maybe not understand everything, but if you have to prioritize, you should focus on finance with Python. This is really something that will help you in every respect with regard to everything that is done in the other classes, right? And then we have the Python for finance key skills and the Linux basics part, tools and skills, which is about software engineering, AI and finance, the book versions, and a ton of the optional ones, right? So I've tried to keep it as lean as possible. Many of these, this is like when you go to the restaurant, right? The restaurant menu might have, let's say, 100 different options, but of course you won't eat 100 courses there, right? You need to focus on your starter and the main and the dessert. Maybe you have a second course, right, in between the starter and the main, who knows, right? But you need to focus, and this is what I try to convey here. This is a recommendation, but of course I know some people say, well, I need to refresh my math skills, therefore I go first maybe through the math basics part there, as one example, right? There are many options that you have that are open to you of how to study. This is just a recommendation. At one point you should decide in the CPF for a specialization here. So this is from week 4, so no rush yet, but at a certain point this should be done, right? Here is the 1-year study plan with a link accordingly, right, where I've tried to provide, again, a recommendation for a 1-year study plan. So 3 trimesters actually, right? In the first trimester I started with Python for asset management, and then you would study the other ones. Then we have here the study plan for the TAQ. Again, we start here with finance with Python, then move on towards the PFF key skills. Then here, because it is focusing on AI in finance, right, we have these 3 classes, 3 lines here, right? NLP basics as a core part, reinforcement learning for finance, and AI in finance. That's already quite a bit to master. You have, of course, other options here like PFF basics, data science basics, AIIF foundations. So even this, where I say, or where I've showed you in visual form, right, what is yeah, that this is a subset of the CPF. When you have a look at it, when you thoroughly go through what is presented here, that's indeed quite a bit. That's for sure, right? Oh, I just wanted to, it's just a screenshot. There is week 12 as well, but this is on the next page here, right? So therefore, I wanted to navigate to something that is simply not on my slide deck, right? So that's already quite a bit. But again, you have flexibility. If you fall behind a little bit, you can later on catch up. You can also say, well, 12 weeks is a little bit too ambitious. I got a question already in this regard, right? You can also stretch this, let's say, to twice the number of weeks. But at least I want to show you, if this is not for a single calendar week, but I think the sequence in which I present the topics here, or the sequence in which I present the topics here, this is what makes sense. So it wouldn't make sense to do stuff from down here and start with that, because you say, yeah, I always wanted to learn about doc tests and unit tests, and therefore I don't care about Python environments. I rather dive into doc tests and unit tests. I'm making up this example. This has never happened to me, at least not that I noticed. So the sequence overall is what matters. If you say, I want to stretch it to twice the number of weeks, for example, not a big deal. If you say, well, I need, I don't know, for family holiday or whatnot, I need to put in 2 weeks here for break. Shouldn't be an issue, but I think the major, one of the major success factors is that you keep up moving forward. You need to keep the momentum. I mentioned this during the introduction, where I said, well, we now get started with our quote unquote traditional introduction and overview. So you see what to expect, like whetting your appetite. And then in the second session and third session of our introduction bootcamp here, we already dive into practical applications so that we get the momentum. And then, yeah, the major thing is to keep up the momentum. We all know this when you get started in a new year. On New Year's Day, everything is so easy to, I don't know, stop smoking or whatever people want to do in a new year, right? But once you get into your regular rhythm, this is the hard part. I know for sure, but that's also a reason, among others, why we want to provide the flexibility that you need in this regard, right? So, few words about our guiding principles here. For sure, our programs are not about theory first. So it's not a university course where you first study the mathematical foundations and then the theoretical foundations, and in the second or third semester you dive into the practical applications. No, it is coding and implementation that are the focus, and theory and practical considerations are sometimes presented in some more detail, sometimes maybe not at all. It depends on the topic, right? So coding and Python. Therefore, it's a certificate in Python for finance, right? So Python comes first. It's not a finance program where we apply Python to implement the algorithms that we have studied thoroughly beforehand. Yeah, then it is typically in the very same sense specific, right? So it's not that we say, like in many university classes, courses, that they say, well, let's have a look at the overall world and let's provide some structure to what we observe out there, and also have a look at the history and where we were coming from, who was adding to the theoretical story what. It is specific, right? So algorithms used and examples that are shown are specific in nature, and they are not meant to provide an exhaustive overview, right? So it's not that I would strive for comprehensive coverage of a certain topic we need, give it a time, and you have seen the large number, the comprehensive set of resources that we have already, we need to focus on specific applications, right? Having said that, we also try, and this is also from experience in the past, we try to keep everything reproducible. So we wouldn't expect you to have access to a professional data a provider where you pay, I don't know, 1,000 quid per month for data accessibility, right? We provide you in general with the static data sets that allow for reproducibility of the results. This leads to the situation that usually we're working with simple and often the same data sets throughout, in particular when it comes to financial time series data, right? In other cases, like in algorithmic trading, once we enter the world of the algorithmic trading platforms, right, that's a different story, right? There we need to access real-time data, etc. But overall, we try to keep it as reproducible as possible. This does not mean that you can and should use your own data sets and replace the data set that we use in a certain case by your own. This should be usually with what we teach in the programs, should usually be simple enough, right? To plug and play and to say, yes, here I got a data set, this is what I want to apply this algorithm to or whatnot, right? So this should be easy enough, but we try to keep it as reproducible as possible. And last but not least, practical. So to acquire coding and other practical skills, that's the main goal. Therefore, skill acquisition is indispensable. It's not that here, like you go to the movies, you pay your entrance fee, you buy a ticket, right? You sit there for 2.5 hours, and then you, are relaxed, and you have had a fun time. You go back home, you talk a little bit about what the movie was all about, if it was good or bad, and then all is done. No, you need to do it on your own. This means like when you want to learn to swim, how to swim, there comes a day where you need to jump to the pool, right? Swimming out of the water is just theory, but not practice. Same holds true for driving a car, right? You need to, one day, if you want to learn to drive a car, my son last year did his driver's license, and so of course he needed to jump on the car and for the first time, become part of the traffic. Same holds true if you want to learn how to play the piano. You can watch 100 hours, 1,000 hours of professional piano play, wonderful music on YouTube. This will not make you a piano player. Maybe you can do a couple of simple things, but you need to practice, right? You need to sit down at the piano, at the keyboard, and you need to hit the keys with your own fingers. Or to put it as simple as many people do, you cannot hire somebody to do push-ups for you. You need to do your own push-ups. And having said that, that's probably the most important part. This is by construction, right? This is how we have constructed and planned for the programs, and this is what you need to do. So you need to see it as a practical experience. You need to do the coding, the quiz solving, the exercises, the test projects. This is what you need to do on your own, right? Speaking of quizzes and exercises, right? There are quite a few, right? And there are a couple of questions that I will answer in a minute, right? Yeah, I will answer the questions without direct relationship in a minute. So here the quiz is an exercise. We have simple yes/no questions. I think that's already good to get started, right? Ping pong, left, right, black, white, 0, 1, like in the computer world, right? There are many such questions. Then we have the traditional structure of multiple choice questions here, like what is NumPy primarily used for? Web development, game development, numerical computing, text processing. Of course, it starts sometimes simple, gets a bit more involved, right? So there are many of these, and usually these are related to fundamental topics. And by fundamental, I mean typical Python topics, right? Like here you see data structures, or here the NumPy object, what I consider, yeah, at the core of the core, not necessarily for finance only, Python for finance only, but for other domains there as well. Then we have here exercises, advanced control structure exercises, like use nested for loops to print a pyramid pattern with hints, using a while loop, find the least common multiple of two numbers, and yeah, and so forth. So this requires you to code, right? Here it's just yes or no. Then you have A, B, C, D. Here you need to, yeah, sit down at your machine and do the coding. This is like the practicing, right? The practicing of your scales, or however you want to call it, what your favorite analogy is. So there are quite a few of these, right? And there is more. We have also the tutorials, right? They are even more involved. There you will find test projects, which might require you to spend a couple of hours. As I said before, you don't necessarily have to do them for the very week where I say this is not the time for it. You can do that a little later on. But what I would recommend, as before, is not that you say, oh, well, for this test project, I don't have time this week, therefore I won't do it at all. Rather say, well, I do it next week, because sequence, I would say, matters more than speed, right? So that's, from my point of view, how you should go about it when you say, well, I don't really know how to yeah, plan for it or do it. Again, sequence matters more from my point of view than speed. So we have the user forum. Here I've shown you already the overview there. For everything technical and content related, please use the user forum. So I usually do not answer content questions, technical questions by email. That's not the way to go about it. It should be on the Quant platform, so that others from our team or others from our group of delegates can help answering, and in particular benefit from answering. And you can also search the user forum individually. I haven't shown the search for the user forum yet, but you can easily try it out. Works the same way, and the user forum is searchable. Therefore, content questions, program questions, technical questions, they belong to the user forum. On the other hand, we have the Discord server, right, where you find room, time, and other people for everything else. Like here with regard to the program on a high level, right? Not about the content, right? Content, as long as you are in the content technical world, go to the user forum. Here it's more like, oh, well, what about the final project? When should I start thinking about the final project? Usually I would say, it's still time to go. Forget about it for the moment, right? This is a typical question in the past, or something about coding, finance, hardware, sometimes events, or with the boot camp and so forth. So this is what it's all about. And not every week, but regularly, I will also do Q&A sessions on the Discord server, where I will be sitting, let's say, for an hour or so in front of the machine. I will answer questions live, but of course you can also put your questions there, but then it might take a little while until the question is answered. With regard to the user forum, we get notified by email if there is a new post, so no need to send the same request or the same topic by email if you have posted it in the user forum. With regard to the Discord server, it depends on whether I'm traveling or not, or what is going on in terms of how fast we answer. We answer the questions that are posted there, but again, we will have live Q&A sessions where we can interact in real time, but this will be announced then upfront. So the final project for the CPF, you find the details here. I'm just putting it out here, and what I was saying before, I'm saying here again, it's well enough time to put this off and to say, well, I first want to study, I first want to acquire my skills, I first want to become clear about yeah, what topic I want to specialize in. And so starting maybe 10, 11, 12 weeks in, right, that's the time where you should start thinking about the final project. Here you'll find the details, because the question is always, raised in the beginning. What about the final project? What about the final project? But as the name suggests, it's the final project, so you have time. We also will have exercises, test projects in between that will lead you up to the final project. So therefore, take this also as a step-by-step topic, and yeah, give yourself the time that is needed and required to get to the point where you say, now I'm clear about the final project, what I want to do, and I can submit the proposal which is required. But this again has time. Here you find the requirements document, which hopefully says it all with regard to what to consider for the final project, right? So with regard to the pages, for those of you who might not have decided yet whether to join us or not, you still have time. You can follow along the next two sessions, which are, as I was saying, practical. After this overview, there are the pages, and there have been questions that I mentioned I will answer later on. Working professional, how can a working professional plan and pace their learning using this course? Yeah, it depends on how much time A, you can, and B, you are willing to invest. I said it a few times, sequence matters more than speed from my point of view. So you should follow one of the study plans. Either you take the 12-week study plan and stretch it a little bit longer if you see fit, or you say from the beginning, I go with the 1-year self-paced study plan, which of course relaxes the whole situation quite a bit. But we cannot basically tell you what to do, how to do it. We just can give you the framework, and you need to see how this all fits into your schedule, right? That's a point, where you need to maybe get started, see how it goes, then maybe adjust your approach or adjust your study plan, right? So this is again something that is more up to you than to us. And for example, this would be something, if you want to discuss it for the Discord server, that is, well, I log into the Discord server, I maybe discuss with like-minded people what issues they face, or maybe with previous delegates how they went about it, or you ask me, you ask us what they can do in this specific situation. But yeah, beyond the study plans that we offer, it's difficult to tell what fits an individual situation. And I know there are always unforeseen elements, there are family obligations, there are holiday breaks, there's high workload, stressful times, or maybe also some sickness, hopefully not, right? But you never know. That's what life is about, right? We cannot tell what's happening. At least we try our best to be as flexible and accommodating as possible. And we wish you all the best, that you can get through the program as you wish for and as you have planned for, right? With regard to saving the videos, this is indeed something that we disable. So at this point, we don't allow to download the videos. For example, you can download the PDFs of the books. You can download all the Jupyter notebooks, for example, but the videos are at this point not downloadable, right? This is for, that's a corporate decision that we have made in the past, right? Yeah, having said that, I think this was already quite a comprehensive overview. Our starting point, the first session of the first ever Kickoff Bootcamp, with now 2 practical sessions following afterwards, so that we say, well, this was nice, this was the theory, but I said myself, the core part of the program is that you acquire practical skills. And the focus on practical skills is now starting with the next session of our bootcamp, with our map in front of us, knowing what is all there, what to expect, and how to go about it. We can then dive into the coding world itself with the second and the third session of our Kickoff Bootcamp. And yeah, having said that, I wish you all the best. I wish all of you who are following us along for the next 12 weeks a wonderful, exciting, and productive time. and that you will achieve all your goals that you have with acquiring better Python and AI skills for the future. In that sense, I see you in the next session. Take care. Bye bye.